Start up and hello and hey, true believers, Englentine here. There's like a second or two before we know we're live that we're actually live. I'm always afraid one day it's going to be like one of those Anchorman things. What? Yeah. All right. So got a conversation going on in the DMs, and hello to Mr. Eric Breen. How are you doing, sir?
I'll answer your question. No, it's not any better.
I am so sorry to hear that.
Appointments. I've got an appointment for Friday. I'm going to make another one for a different thing and start trying to figure out what some of this stuff is. But the good news is I'm trying to get just regular sick on top of everything else.
You know what? Anything worth doing.
I agree.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't need to get sick to get that really cool Nick Nolte voice from 48 Hours. Years of smoking have done that already.
Yeah. You probably have never thought of yourself as an overachiever. Now's not the time to start, Eric.
Medical overachievement, the worst kind of overachievements.
All right. So here's what happened. Apparently on Twitter, Mark Millar, somebody said, "What do you think about The Dark Knight Returns?" And Mark Millar said, "Best comic book ever." And that sparked off a bit of a conversation in the DMs and actually on his thread as well. People are like, whoa, 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 whoa. Hold on. Watchmen.
Them fighting words.
Yo. Yeah. Hello? What? Okay. I thought the bird was talking to me. By the way, twiddles the world twiddles. And so I thought of something. Because there were a couple of comments in Mark Millar's thread that, oh, by the way, hello to Jay Lucian. How's it going, man? Okay. But anyway, there were a couple of comments in his thread, which were like, oh, they both suck. They both were bad. They were both this and this. And it reminded me of our debate about Citizen Kane. You and me, Eric.
Yeah.
The way I said everything that was touted to me about Citizen Kane, I'd seen a million times before in other movies. So by the time I got to it, it really was just a slow moving talking snooze fest. Not the usual way somebody, especially somebody who proposes that he loves movies as much as he loves comics, think about Citizen Kane. Which of course prompted you to believe that I may be an idiot, Savant, or just an idiot.
Yeah, like the entire Academy is about to come pelt you with Oscar statues today.
Yeah. What were you about?
In my defense, I thought that before we even met in person. So,
well, thank you. Okay, you know what? At least you're consistent, and that's why we love you.
Remember, we ain't brothers, we ain't partners, and we ain't friends.
No, you're just going Nick Nolte tonight. That's all right.
The man might be dying. Let him have his moments.
So this actually made me think about the whole Watchmen versus Dark Knight and the oh my gosh, they both suck thing that maybe some young people would say. Is because let's face it, Watchmen, if you think historically, when we first got Batman Dark Knight Returns, don't bite. Dalton, you neither, bird. But when we first got The Dark Knight Returns, we'd never seen comics that cinematic before. And when we got Watchmen, nobody had ever broken down and deconstructed the superhero comic book as much as Alan Moore did at that point in that time. So historically, this was truly something we had never seen. In the last 10 years, we have seen definitely every DC comic book character get deconstructed. The way that they've shown Alan Moore to be a true genius is
because all of them are crap comparatively.
Well, they forgot to reconstruct. They forgot to tell us why we love these characters. And so that was my thinking in all of this, and how when you do look at something in the past and you do not like it for what it was historically, like I do with Citizen Kane at times, I think that that's something that people are missing, the historical context when they bring this kind of stuff up. Which would bring, of course, the question, do you actually believe that these are the two books that represent the pinnacle of comics?
No.
Eric, are you trying to say something?
No, I wasn't. I was trying to come up with a more flowery way to say no.
Okay, yeah, I saw the little pulsing. So,
but there's, I should say, it all depends on, best in continuity, best story of all time. I think there are different ways to answer this question. If it's an either or, then the answer is no, because I don't think they are. But that's just because I'm not as big a fan of those stories as a lot of people are, because there are a lot of people that are preconditioned to absolutely slurp all over both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people that are conditioned to shit all over both of them.
Well, if you're looking at something like, if you're looking at The Dark Knight, and you said, do you count, when you're talking about greatest stories of all time, you're talking about in continuity or out of continuity? Dark Knight is, or was, out of continuity. They keep trying to tie shit to it.
Mm-hmm.
The same way they did with Killing Joke. Killing Joke was supposed to be completely out of continuity, but then they brought it in.
But it is the Joker origin we all want, so sod it.
Yeah. Because if you're talking in continuity, I'm going to have to say, I'm going to have to agree with you. No, it's not the greatest. That what I would give to No Man's Land for a Batman. But if you think Frank Miller doesn't even make the top, I think it's definitely in the top 3.
I'd put them both in the top 20, but there's a lot of really good books around this era, like the British invasion sort of 90s, 80, late 80s, early 90s era that gives it a run for its money. So I'd put both of those in the top 20. I don't honestly know what I would put in the top spot. My knee-jerk reaction is, of course, to say Sandman, but as I've often said, Sandman is a great book with an absolutely abysmal ending.
Yeah, so I can read it right up to the last 2 chapters, and by what we're talking about there is the last 20 issues, 30 issues.
Yeah.
So here you go. I do want to ask you, Eric, and I'm kind of focusing on us on this one because you and I were there. I don't know, Jay, I don't know exactly how old you are, but I know that Eric and I were there when both of these books were on the shelf.
That was 86, 87, correct?
Yeah.
Wow, you're old.
So I was 10, 11.
Oh.
So it was I was old enough to read them, but I wasn't. Yeah, I honestly didn't read them until the early 2000s.
Yeah, you probably could read them on a visceral level.
It would have gone right over my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's like me and Fraggle Rock. The sorry. Let's see. In a Disguise saying Dark Knight was a better story, but Watchmen made more of an impact because it was a departure from superhero stories. Them not being the good guys. Well, they were good guys, but they were the good guys, but they weren't exactly good guys. It's kind of like a TV show starring Dennis Leary. It was called Rescue Me. Came out in the 2000s about New York firefighters. Mm-hmm. The whole premise of that was your heroes don't have to be good guys. These dudes were drinking, drug doing adulterers, but when they put on the uniform, they're
not paragons. Sure, they just happen to be the ones we need at the moment.
They did their best to make sure that everybody got out of the buildings alive. And Watchmen is kind of the same thing. These are the people who put themselves in the front line to help people. But personally, Rorschach stinks. He's overly violent to criminals, some people think. I'm sorry, but if somebody's feeding a little girl to a dog, there's no amount of violence you could do to them. Yeah, that would make me upset. There are just certain things. I'm going through that particular crisis right now with what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing over in the Middle East. I'm sorry, but you attack my family, you kill them. You cannot tell me with how much force I can exact vengeance on. Maybe after you arrest me for it, but yeah, it's kind of that thing. The Watchmen, the legacy of the Watchmen, however, and the Dark Knight Returns was a late 80s to early 90s where you could almost only tell who the hero was because theirs were the names that was on the comic. Because you would have these ultra-violent heroes coming out, and they were doing things just as bad as the villains, much like Rorschach in the Watchmen. So you just had to, it's oh goodness, I know his name's not Roadkill. What was the Ronan, or what was the dude? Freaking renegade guy carried a baby like Lone Wolf and Cub.
No, man.
No, we'll go with that. I don't know what. I don't remember what. I thought it was. I thought it started with
I
an R.
I think it may be Nomad if you're talking about.
If you're talking about, you have to, the Jack Monroe series where he.
Yes.
Yeah, that's Nomad.
Yeah, it's like he was running around with a shotgun blowing people's heads off and such, and you would get that all throughout. I mean, it led right up to a character that you have praised quite a bit called Hitman. How is he in hero? It's
same thing could be said about Grimjack too, who was 3 years before DKR and Watchmen.
Now with Grimjack, I always give a little bit more leeway to independents. Obviously, they're the person who created. They're their characters.
Sure.
The people who are writing for Marvel and DC, the people who are drawing for Marvel and DC need to realize that these are not their characters. Unfortunately, they lost that plot.
They work for the characters, honestly, should be the mantra, but But it's like the whole deconstruction thing that came from Alan Moore's Watchmen, or the violent Batman that came from Dark Knight. The people who came after that, most of them anyway, just learned the wrong lessons from these two. I want to go around. I want to know if there's anybody here who actively does not like and did not like either Dark Knight or Watchmen from the very beginning. Nope. We all liked it then, huh?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they both have their issues, and especially looking at it in, the 20-year rear view mirror here, those issues are more plain. Like, for example, Frank Miller cannot write Superman to save his life. The Superman that was being written in Dark Knight Returns was not a good iteration of that character, or representative iteration of that character.
That might actually be a tier list coming. Best and worst Frank Miller.
And with Watchmen, there was so much laggy stuff, like the kid and the comic book within the comic book. I know a lot of people love that. I did not.
Well, also,
so I have to gear myself up for that crap. But the whole thing is do you let smaller criminals or smaller crime go for the greater good? Rorschach's saying no, because, well, let's face it, if you let this crime go, it'll be easier to let the next one and the next one. Yeah.
It's the broken windows theory.
Which is?
If you don't arrest people for breaking windows, those same people end up moving on to greater crimes. I mean,
might go into those windows.
Look at New York City in the 90s.
Yeah.
Here's the really fascinating thing, though, with which I will credit Alan Moore and Watchmen. Even though he didn't like Randian objectivism and therefore tried to make Rorschach into his version of a Randian objectivist villain, he didn't strawman Randian objectivism either. The difference between what Alan Moore did in Watchmen and what a lot of constructive types do now is Alan Moore, probably due to some of his own blissful ignorance, thought his moral position was so much the obvious right answer that he didn't need to strawman his enemies to make people hate them. Whereas now, I think the modern day deconstructivists are aware that their position is the minority position, and so they go out of their way to strawman their enemies in an attempt, a usually vain attempt, to try and make themselves look like the heroes. It almost never works, though, because it's not an accurate portrayal of their enemies. Whereas Alan Moore thought he was in the right and was so sure of that he actually did think, all I have to do is accurately portray this philosophical position and people will hate it, right? No, Alan. No, we won't. Sorry.
I've got a little paradox for you guys. See, if we're going to go ahead and rate on what's my personal favorite comic book story of all time and what I would consider the best, I would consider Kingdom Come.
I was about to say I was going to get to that later. I wanted to talk about these two specifically for a little bit.
No, but it just goes into that. Kingdom Come, I do consider the best of all time. However, without Watchmen, without DKR, there's probably never a Kingdom Come. So there's the paradox.
Kingdom Come to the Watchmen.
Right, exactly.
So you could see the script and everything, and it very much is. I always point to this because I always wanted to see this in the movies. I mentioned this in another live stream where you have the two cops, and he says, "What the hell is that?" And the cop says, "Oh, you're in for a show, kid. And the next thing is lightning goes, and we see Batman. Now they tried to do it in the animated, and they came close. But this is a very cinematic book from very beginning to end. It's almost like Frank Miller wrote it knowing he was going to put a movie into your mind, like graphic audio. Yeah, and it really did work out. Now you talk about the legacy, and you get modern day comics where a guy jumps out the window. Oh my God, Flip. I can't believe Flip.
It's not
I'm
butter.
Flip falling. And it's like, dude, no, you're not getting it. You just missed on this one.
What I find funny is, for as great as both of these books are, both creators had a moment where they went freaking insane shortly after this, because Frank Miller, of course, did Asbar and Holy Terror and things of that nature. And do we even need to start doing the autopsy on what the hell went wrong with Alan Moore's mind yet?
Lost Girls. Did you guys ever read that?
Nope.
It is not good. It really is not. Now, Lost Girls is almost like a precursor to Fables, where it takes, or I guess there's no real bridge. I was about to say it's a precursor to Fables, but kind of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen did that. It's like Alan Moore went, what if I made a pornographic comic book, kind of like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but with the public domain female characters? Why don't I do that? It was not good. No, I cannot recommend Lost Girls. Is anyone having a problem with this stream, or is it just me? I am not having a problem with the stream.
I think it might just be you, because I'm not even getting the usual glitches that I get from StreamYard as yet, knock on wood.
I did.
Yeah, I'm good.
Did just realize I haven't shared this out or anything, but no, I'm doing okay with it. It looks good when I'm looking at it on YouTube as well. Alrighty. There we go. But yeah, so Alan Moore, and we could talk about what they did after all of these, and you guys know how I feel about Frank Miller. Alan Moore, just in my opinion, has been absent. What did he do, Eric? He did was Supreme, and
yeah, he wrote all the stuff for the ABC imprint, like Tom Strong and
all that,
and Top 10
Tomorrow Stories and all that stuff, which were very good.
His most recent is Promethea, I think. I don't think
he was
returned
doing
to comics since then.
Yeah, he was doing that. Was at the same time. I don't know if he went back and revisited that. I didn't think that was as good as the other ones could. Yeah, but the other ones, when Alan Moore tries to write like a regular guy, and he's just better. Yeah, so his stuff that's supposed to resemble standard superhero fare, you realize is a cut above because he's got that talent. But when he goes off into strange lands like he did with Promethea, I think that's.
I mean, he literally wrote that story as a narrative spell to try and end the world. So if we apocalypse here in the next 10 years or so, blame Alan Moore.
Well, I was going to say, I think that book itself would have appealed to people that are more into the Sandman side of comics reading that I've just never been. So I give a better chance of liking that if you were more into that kind of stuff. I
would read it, except for the fact that I know for a fact he tried to write a narrative spell that would end the world using it. So, no.
If he really believes that he has the power to do that, then he's got bigger problems than I thought. But
yeah.
Well, at least with Frank Miller, he went out. He was able to grow out of his crazy phase, whereas Moore, not so much.
Deeper and deeper into the crazy. And trust me, even from a magical perspective, no, we all think he's insane too. It's not that he believes in magic that's the problem. It's that even by magician standards, he's a nutter.
I hear you.
But does he believe in magic in a young girl's heart?
Dang it, Eric.
I need to get a bomber plane to drop all of the boots on your head that now need to be dropped on the boot that need to be dropped on your head, Eric.
Well, slow down, man. Don't launch the boots onto Eric.
But he's calling for a boot to the head. My hands are tied.
Well,
The
if you launch all your boots at me, at least, and when you don't have any shoes left, they'll all be in Kentucky.
Well, there you go.
Make sense, actually.
Hello to Paolo, who's saying Moore's last good work was League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Volume 2, Dark Dossier. Was strange. I agree. Grant
I
Morrison
agree too.
Once too, but I think he was trolling the audience. He wanted people to play with themselves on issues of the invisible to prevent its cancellation. That's weird. I just found out, by the way, the Black Widow or the White Widow reading that we did yesterday was demonetized for inappropriate content. I just challenged it, but it's kind of weird. I don't know. They said it violates their advertiser-friendly content. It is so freaking weird. I put it under review. I've never won one of these because usually the person who made the complaint is the person you have to go to and say, "Hey, what are you talking about?" And they go, "Fuck you." Usually it's you Trump supporting fat bastard of some sort. So yeah, that is just weird because all we did was read and make fun of a comic book. So I'm really thinking that they took offense at something we said. But
nonetheless, White Widow was just a bad series. It's also a complete bastardization of Yelena Beluga.
It really is. But the only thing I could think of that was said, because we showed a comic, it's my bald head, LK's bald head, and White Widow. So it's either our bald heads that were like, oh, that's too many penises on screen, or it's something that happened in the comic book that they said this is not suitable. So I'm thinking it's more likely I said something along the lines of, I think at one point in time I did say, yeah, I'm a full-on American Trump supporter, and that pisses people off. Now I'm going to lose this one. Let's see.
Way it goes.
Surprise stream. No, I didn't get an alert. But shadow banning doesn't exist, Rhaegar. I don't know.
Rhaegar, unfortunately, I think Bashir's an immortal lock.
Also, I have a T-shirt saying all my favorite channels have been demonetized or deleted. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so we guys that have joined us, we are talking about what Mark Millar started off when he said the best comic book of all time is Dark Knight Returns, which of course other people said no, it's Watchmen, and there are a couple of people who flat out there are some people who flat out hate both. Venkman actually came out and said that Long Halloween was boring. Anybody else want to take that one?
So he's wrong.
Yeah, no, I don't get that at all, man. The Long Halloween was awesome, but that does stand to reason. Then, what are the greatest comic books of all time? See, I can't say Dark Knight. I love Dark Knight Returns. That's one of the comic book miniseries I probably read the most in my entire life, but it's not even my favorite Frank Miller story, which would be Daredevil run. I mean, just start at the beginning of his run, stop at the end, and boom. Greatest run. Even if you're talking about story as far as Batman's concerned, do not shit on my shoulder. No.
I think the original Jamie Delano Hellblazer deserves to be nominated here.
With yeah, but I'm thinking I like Year One better than Dark Knight. So it's not even my favorite Batman Frank Miller. But I don't know. So Eric, what would you say greatest comic book story of all time?
First, I need somebody to explain to me how Kentucky Republicans are winning every state election except for the governor, who is absolutely boat racing the Republican.
Good enough to tell you.
Different subject for a different time, Eric, I think.
Well, I'm responding to Rhaegar, what he said, and I told him, I said, right after I said that, they showed it, and it's ugly. I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question, please?
If it isn't Watchmen, if it isn't Dark Knight Returns, what is the greatest comic book run of all time? And something is going on with the views. I'm looking at the numbers, and it just went from 10 to 6, from 14 to 0. It's bouncing around. So, but what would you say it is?
protracted run. We've talked about this. No Man's Land is what was that? 2 years, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
And Vegman, I have to disagree, because I said back in the day they could do these things, spread them out over every book, and keep it coordinated and not a convoluted mess. Give you an idea how far that's fallen. The Joker War tried to go through like 4 or 5 books, and there were continuity errors out the wazoo.
Because apparently they just don't talk to each other while they're working.
Yeah,
anymore.
the Superman
Yeah,
team.
which pretty much creates like inconsistencies with the titles when that event was taking place.
The Superman team was very famous for their get together. I mean, we all know the story of the death of Superman. After that, okay, now we got to coordinate, and they coordinated through 4 books, told a through line narrative as well as their own individual stories. They could do it back in the day. Now it seems like there's not even an interest. But once again, what do you think? What do you think you would say your favorite comic book story of all time? Comic books.
My favorite. Is it No Man's Land for the long game? Korvac Saga for the slightly shorter, because really that actually went about 11 issues total. But there were also what helped make that great for me were subplots that had been introduced 15 issues before, factored into what happened in that storyline. So there was about 2 years of Shooter writing Avengers and he doesn't get credit. No one ever talks about him. They talk about good writers, let alone great writers. But that was a tremendous run.
Can't lie. I can't argue with it. The Korvac Saga is my favorite Avengers story of all time. How about you, Dalton? Where do you go to? Best comic book of all time. Mark Millar says Dark Knight Returns. Do you agree? And what would yours be?
I don't agree. I think I think Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns would be in the top 20, but I don't agree that it's the top. I don't honestly know what I would put on top, because I used to say Sandman all day long, but then I remembered that the last 20 issues or so of Sandman is horrible. And
You're
it's horrible
welcome for me pointing that out.
so like I don't know what deserves the top spot.
Wow,
And
Fragminion, by the way.
What would be the top spot for me is stuff that nobody reads or cares about enough to seek out like they seek out the other ones. So I don't know what I would put.
Well, good time to throw a title out there. Somebody could try something new.
Okay. This is going to be a weird one, and it is kind of in the vein of this sort of 90s deconstructivist era, which is Strange Tales Volume 2. It was a book that Doctor Strange shared with Cloak and Dagger, and it was the first storyline, as far as I am aware, where Doctor Strange was faced with a situation where he had to break his ethical rules and delve into dark magic. It is an amazing character study of that character, and it does have a lot of drama in it, and you basically get to see Doctor Strange's entire extended cast come together to try and basically talk him out of a depressive spiral. It's a really good story. Almost nobody knows that it exists, but it's a really good story.
That is, by the way, one of the hardest lines of comics for me to get my hands on. I'm always looking for Doctor Strange, and I know that Strange Tales is an N on that. And it's surprisingly more sought after than you would think by people who are trying to collect that particular character. We lost Jay for a bit, but if I'm serious.
Yeah, but no, what I'm talking about though isn't the original Strange Tales with Steve Ditko. It's
I know what. No, that's what I'm talking about. That 1980s. It came out around the same time as Marvel Comics Presents. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Those are actually difficult. People like these runs. It's just it's not a flashy title. It's not a key issue of anything. So it's straight up based on how good those books are. That's a good call on that for some of the stuff that people are going on. I buy and sell comics for a living. One of the ones I've been trying to get a hold of is any kind of good run of Doctor Strange, and that is a tough thing.
Speaking of great portrayals of Doctor Strange that nobody's going to know about, there's a book called Spider-Man Fever, and Spider-Man got top billing in it, but its content-wise was very much more a Doctor Strange book. Spider-Man got possessed by a spider demon, and of course Doc had to come in and help. That's a really good book that I can't get my hands on because it keeps disappearing.
Originally, I said Frank Miller's run on Daredevil. I think that's kind of cheating because that is like what 50 issues.
Yeah, the Born Again thing.
Well, he was on for about 158 through 191. Okay, then he came back for 227 through like 233 or something like that.
Okay, so we're a little less than 40. Point being is, I think that's cheating. So yeah, straight up, then to me, it would have to be No Man's Land. Once again, that is a 2-year protracted. You mentioned mini series, but that just off the top of my head, that would still include things like Kingdom Come, as Jay said, and it would include things like Marvel. With Marvel's Dark Knight Returns is up there, guys. But I think ultimately, Batman Year One. Once again, no fat on that meat. It is just a very clear, concise story, and it's one that I've read forever and a day. And now that I'm thinking of it, protracted, long stories, Bone deserves to be up there somewhere in the top 10 or 20. Jay, how about you? You want to talk a little bit more about Kingdom Come being your favorite comic book story, or?
I believe you got the wrong guy.
Sorry, Dom, yeah.
Wow, that's a tough one. It's honestly a tie between Astro City and Michael Turner-Shadow, but if I choose what's the best comic book story of all time, I would have to go with Astro City. Okay, starting with
the whole run.
Yes, the whole run, but I won't want to shine a special spotlight to the first story, which focuses on the Samaritan, and not only acts as a solid primer of what Astro City is all about, but it also shows you like who the Samaritan is as a character, because like throughout the story, like he does, like even though he is a Superman analog, he is his own distinct character, and while he does enjoy doing what he does. So it was like between saving people as a member of the honor guard and also like doing his job. But all the guy ever wants is to just kick back, relax, and just fly, not physically, but fly in his dreams.
Okay, I've got a question. Since we talked about protracted, longer stories, and we talked about the miniseries, is there a one-shot or a single issue that you think might make your top 10, or at least one that you would consider this is the greatest single issue of a comic book ever made? I know a question like this, you're put on the spot. You guys think about it just a touch. I'm going to get some of the comments, and we'll get to the answers here. Paolo was saying Roger Stern's Avengers is good throughout. Stern makes it work with mainly also rans and make sure everybody has a personality. And of course, Eric, you're replying, you've been championing Stern's Avengers for years for that reason. We are talking about favorite comics, Samuel Proctor. Paolo also says, if we think of the entire John Sable freelance as a protagonist's personal journey, I think its run is the best comic book ever that a few people have read. I felt very connected to John Sable. And let's see, he's got Spider-Man Fever. And no, I haven't seen that movie. I have no idea what that is. Apparently, I love Bane, Rhaegar is saying. Guy on bottom left is broadcasting from the center of the earth. Yes, Dom does live in the center of the earth. Hey, old Carter, single issue for the man who has everything. Okay, man who has everything. What do you think the single issue, like, or graphic novel or whatever? What do you have a personal best?
You're always talking about that Superman annual, right? That Moore wrote.
Okay, you know what?
The man who has everything was a Superman story.
I
Yes.
actually thought he was joking about you because of your house. Yes, I have read the God damn it. I feel stupider now.
What?
That, however, you all is a great issue. Thank you. That's the one that introduces the Black Dahlia or thing, right?
Yep. While we're talking about Superman stories, what's so funny about Truth, Justice, and the American Way?
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Which was adapted into the movie Superman versus the Elite, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh, you're correct, Dalton. And thank you, because that was actually going to be my choice for a single issue.
Well, tell why.
Well, all right. So, what's so funny about Truth, Justice, and the American Way is written by Joe Casey, and while it is one of my favorite single issues of a run, but this was written as a response, much similar to Kingdom Come and Astral City. What's so funny about Truth, Justice, and the American Way is as a response to like people's to the rise of like the dark and edgy heroes and anti-heroes most especially. But it also like gives an effective rebuttal on why aspirational heroes like such as Superman are long lasting.
It's basically you idiots, this is how you write Superman, in case you didn't know, book.
There you go. Okay, the real Eric Brain. Do you have an answer?
You know, that's I've never really thought about that as far as like one single issue, be it a treasury or an annual or blah blah. But one issue I always go back to, if I'm not mistaken, I believe this is Roger Stern, is Avengers 230. Okay. It's the plot of it is it's the end of the Egghead story, where Egghead had basically been behind a lot of Hank Pym's problems. And at the end of issue 229, Hawkeye shoots an arrow through his gun as he's firing it, killing him. And so issue 230 is that basically there's a Hawkeye's trial, which is pretty much a formality. I mean, he's going to be found, not guilty, blah, blah, blah. But there are scenes in that where Hawkeye's, taking the stand in his own defense, and you can hear, it was like Captain Marvel saying, I thought that he was more wind than conviction, and just hearing the way people are thinking, like the thoughts of the characters. And then at the end, there's a scene with Hank and Jan, because Hank is basically, he's called to give testimony. He comes up and Jan's the chairman at the time, so she calls him Dr. Pym, and you hear She-Hulk saying, God, you were married to this guy. It's like, it's just the emotions of that issue. And then there's a scene between the two of them at the end, which I think that the human drama, given that that story's over 40 years old now, again, maybe we could apply some of the Citizen Kane stuff to it. There've been a lot of issues since then that may have done humanity better, but for its time, that I think it holds up perfectly, and just bringing, like I said, real world elements into a story that really featured no action at all, because that had already all taken place, if I remember correctly. But that was just it's a brilliant issue.
I was thinking about what could possibly be, and my mind kind of went to graphic novels, and that just popped in Marvel. I can't get out of this particular. My tires are spinning in the mud right now because I'm thinking of one-shots and graphic novels for Marvel rather than the entire spectrum of comics.
Shambhala?
But not Shambhala as much as when you're talking, I was wondering if you were going to bring up Triumph and Torment.
Triumph and Torment, yeah, that might be the single greatest Doctor Strange story in terms of putting him somewhere in continuity.
It very much could be. That for those of you who don't know, this is Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom. The Vishanti get together. They want to announce the Sorcerer Supreme, the new Sorcerer Supreme, and Doctor Doom is invited this time.
Is the runner-up?
There's something along the lines the winner has to grant the wish of the runner-up, and the runner-up is Doctor Doom. And he says, I want you to free my mother from hell, basically. And so the rest of the issue was them going to do that. And one of the things I liked about this story is that Dr. Doom's a very what's this kind of,
egocentric character.
Yeah, kind of very like he's playing to the back row all the time, you know, just
Grandiose.
big villain. Grandiose, thank you. Just yes, I am Dr. Doom. I have recording or microphones in every room because every utterance of doom is worthy of recording. That kind of guy. So this whole thing kind of brings him down a peg. He tries to bitch talk Doctor Strange a couple times. Doctor Strange is like, "You're Doom," okay, and that's the way Doctor Strange should be to him. And
because if you could do this yourself, I wouldn't be here now, would I?
Yeah. And it kind of brings him down a peg. It makes him a little bit more human. You start to see the real guy underneath the armor a lot. And not to mention that it's just a cool adventure as well. But then I thought, which one did I read a lot? Which one really stuck with me as a kid? That has to be God Loves, Man Kills. As far as just single issues, this was so freaking cool. And this one was the X-Men, and it's all about racism. It's all about basically hating the other. And this is also a good case of modern day writers don't get. Modern day writers, especially the victims of today, don't understand the X-Men. They think they are them. They're right, but they think they are only them. You know, they are only black people. They are only gay people. They are only not white, straight males, which is bullshit. The X-Men is everybody. That was the great thing of them a long time ago. They were the people who felt awkward, and that could be any freaking kid anywhere.
For any reason under the yellow sun.
And then I thought, you know what? Recently, and by that I mean in the last couple of years, I did I think we did a reading of it. I think we did a reading where we got together and we went through the death of Captain Marvel. And this is a superhero who died. Didn't get killed in battle. Didn't get warped off into some weird dimension. He died. He had cancer. He's gone. And that has to be up there. That has to be in the conversation. Because especially as you get older and you realize, you know, you got a few more years behind you than you do ahead of you, you know.
Ask not for whom the bell tolls.
Now,
Yeah,
you've mentioned this before, but for anybody that doesn't know this, Jim Shooter, who was an absolute stickler for continuity, basically the one time he intentionally bent it was for this story. Because because people that showed up to say goodbye at the time may not have been in a position to, but he felt this were important enough where he said, we'll worry about that later. So that'll give you an idea the weight that the story carried.
Yep. And I don't think it would have had any kind of effect if he was blown up in a spaceship, because we've seen, oh, well, he got warped off to another dimension right before he was blown up in the spaceship so he can come back. This guy was given cancer. And there's a reason why the freaking Golden Age heroes didn't go to World War II, because they didn't want to insult soldiers, because they would have gone over, beaten all the armies, and now it's done. There's a reason why you don't have superheroes go into and do these things, because it would be an insult. Captain Marvel going, "Ha, I beat cancer. I'm free," would have been an insult to every cancer patient from here on in until eternity. So Marvel had to stay dead until they came up with a better fucking reason or a reboot in order to get him back.
Well, in that version, he's still dead, right? I mean,
I would suppose so, but I don't read
enough. How
Marvel
much they keep trying to force Carol into the big seat.
But what was great about that is they tied it into a story that had taken place in his comic.
Okay.
He got the cancer from his battle with Nitro. I think that was his name in issue 34. The guy that could blow himself up.
Right, I think I know who you mean. Yep.
Yeah, and that's again. I mean, so it wasn't like, hey, we're going to do this. Let's just bring this out of left field. No, I mean they did bring but they told the story.
But it worked
long
in
form.
universe,
Yeah.
and it treated the characters like three-dimensional beings.
Yes.
Yet another thing that modern day writers are not just do not get, but are actively like opposed to for some unforeseeable reason.
I'm going to say real quick to Paula. I kind of I agree and disagree with what you said about the start. Yeah, so most other writers just treat them as a collection of costumes. I always thought that was one of the strengths of the Avengers title, where a lot of writers did go into the personalities of the people. Hell, I mean, there's a Jim Shooter run. It's my favorite story of all time, and that's one of the reasons why. But I will say Roger Stern did it the best because he basically, Stern with the Avengers and Peter David with X Factor said, you can have all the characters nobody else wants. Have a ball.
Wasn't Stern the guy who did Triumph and Torment, to call back to that for a second? I thought he was.
I'm not sure.
Or that actually, you know what, might have been Mike Mignola, which just goes to prove that Mike Mignola was always going to be amazing.
Well, he was on the art. And Torment. Let's see. Author Roger Stern, illustrator Mike Mignola.
Yep.
There you go. Paolo says 230. Hank Pym quits being a superhero. No fighting. Very emotional. Samuel Proctor says my favorite issue is Amazing Spider-Man 252. It's pure fun, casual story for such an important new beginning for Peter. Coming back with a black suit. Also, X-Men 183, where Peter dumps Kitty. It's a great issue. Paolo says Janet calls him Dr. Pym again in 240 when he shows up to help save Spider-Woman. Tiger was surprised with that too. These little tidbits are what made Stern's Avengers so awesome. The Avengers all feel connected to each other. Most writers up to that treat them. Okay, that's what we were talking about. Yul Carter is bringing it into DC and saying Judas Contract, which, yeah, that was definitely one of the greatest stories of all time. One of the things I don't like when they bring it to animated or anything like that, even when they did it in the old Teen Titans, Tara has to be around for a couple of seasons of a TV show before you make it happen. In the comic book, it was like a year. I mean, people had their doubts. They didn't make the Titans stupid, but they actually, she had to earn their trust. And when she earned their trust, she was with them for a few months before it actually happened. And one of the things I see a lot of animated things get wrong is they get, oh, here's the new character. Who's going to portray us today? You think it's the new character? Maybe, and they just don't get it. It was a slow burn, the Judas Contract, to the point where when they condense it, I really do think they do it a disservice.
I think Teen Titans did the best they could with what they had. They had her show up like 3 or 4 times before.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
Button,
that's what I'm saying. You kind of, when reading the Judas Contract for it to work, this is one of those things. I'm glad anybody younger than me still likes it, but I think it loses something when you don't have that month till the next issue, because it feels like a longer time between her first appearance and when you get to what they were called, the Hive, and when you get to her final breakdown and her I actually do believe that month between each issue helps the story.
And I mean, maybe I'm biased because the Glen Arakami Teen Titans show was the first place I saw the Judas Contract.
Yeah.
I actually went to look it up what it was after the show did it, but so maybe I'm biased, but it certainly felt like a long time in the scope of a TV show. It's just, TV format.
And, well, that might have actually worked because when you first saw the Teen Titans, it was week to week, right?
Yeah.
So it would have worked as well. So if it was a 12 issue or 12 episode series, or it took 12 episodes for her to get to Here's Tara 2, that was 3 months. So it would have, especially to a kid, that would have felt like forever.
Also, they made the actual Judas Contract part a 2 or 3 part episode, which they almost never did back in the day. So that also probably helped hit it.
Samuel Proctor saying, I love God Loves Man Kills because of the racism, sexism. Zach, a challenger has arrived. Let's see. What if they do Death of Captain Marvel with MCU, but with Brie?
People will be cheering.
There better be one series, one panel at least with Tony Stark going, well, that bitch is dead. I hate it. The whole trope about the heroes fighting before they team up, especially if it's somebody like, say, Captain America and Iron Man, and oh my gosh, misunderstanding, punch. The fuck, Tony? The hell you do? We've known each other for 15 years. You're gonna punch me before asking me a goddamn question? There should be more arguments like that. I'm not a big fan of the I'm just gonna hit you, kind of thing. You know them by now. Talk to each other, that kind of thing. But I guess it doesn't make.
Well, there's a lot of stuff in movies where I'm like that. Like, I hate plots that could be resolved if people acted like adults for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And just mention something. Like, I hate it when that happens. It always happens, especially in like romance novels or romance stories, and it's like, you do realize that this problem will be resolved within 2 seconds of you guys actually talking like human beings.
It's called a dummy plot. You have to, the characters have to act like dummies in order for the plot to continue. Paolo was also bringing up a few issues that happened after the Judas contract, where Changeling tries to kill Deathstroke. Changeling never understood that Terra was actually the real bad guy, and Deathstroke, while bad, had a sense of honor that Terra didn't happen. Changeling always believed that Deathstroke brainwashed her some way, and that just never happened.
It's because he wanted to believe, because he had a thing for her.
Yeah, he was actually.
I mean, I thought that was one of the more human things, and one of the things that made that series so done so well, and things that you couldn't do today because, thank you, modern audience.
Thank you, #me too.
Well,
we
not
can't
even
have
that. It's just
romance
I mean, the audience, they only want stories where you can see yourselves in which case, just give everybody a mirror and be done with it. But the character, like I said, when Terra was an underage Lolita who was basically calling the shots with this worldly 50-something-year-old dude, when you realize that she's basically in charge, it's like this. I mean, this is like being a sociopath to a whole new level.
Mm-hmm.
And that again, but then you juxtapose that with Gar, who's a pretty innocent kid, just refusing to see the obvious. Even when she's dropping a fucking freaking mountain on him, he's still not getting it. But I thought that's human.
To be fair, that also was something they carried over really well in the Glen Arakami version too, was how smitten Beast Boy was with her.
Okay. I just got to point out a little bit. Sorry, I'm talking about my pet. My bird loves Dr. Pepper, loves root beer. He likes the sugar of it. So I had this filled with water, and he saw me open it, comes over, does his little chewing on the bottle top thing, and he's so disappointed.
Oh.
All right. We're going to test this.
Not the first time you've disappointed a bird, is it?
What? Oh, okay. Let's see where you're
euphemism.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going international with that put down.
Deathstroke would have gotten a visit from Chris Hansen today. Yeah, but in her case, it was Terra calling the older guy. And a DC crossover with the Sound of Freedom. Tim Ballard goes hunts down Slade Wilson. Yeah, it was a great story, though. That really was. If you're thinking DC Comics, Eric, what would you say is some of the best, or one of the best DC stories of all time? It's
that Strange Apparitions. I mean, we've talked about that until the cows came home, and
you know what? The cows have not come home on this one. There's no limit to the amount of times I think you could talk about Strange Apparitions. It really is a good story. But
I think that because if you think about it, what are the great Superman stories now? You could say the 2 Alan Moore issues, the closed action in Superman. But again, when you don't have to play by any rules, you can do whatever you want. It does become easier, especially when you have generational talent. But I would say, the Superman, the next 10 years of all those titles told a wonderful story, but you can't really, it's hard to just pinpoint one thing. So, and I think it's a lot easier to find great stories through the years at Marvel than DC.
Yeah.
Even though for 20 years, I think DC as a whole probably produced better content overall.
86 to 2006.
Yeah, thereabouts.
But that right there would tell you straight up. I mean, you do have Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is absolutely one of the greatest. I'm like sitting in front of just a wall of great DC stories right here.
I loved Legends, but a lot of that's just me.
A lot of people love Legends. I would point to the Longbow Hunters. I would point to a lot of the stuff that reimagined the big superheroes. I did like, and one that we don't talk about a lot is Emerald Dawn, which was enjoyable. You still have you still have Batman Year One. I'm trying to remember them as we go. And in Hawk World, I would have taken that as the definitive Hawkman. I mean, granted, we got an excellent story by Robert Venditti. And you could even say that's one of the greatest comics of all time. It's only 28 issues. That's less than No Man's Land. And I would put, and this is modern, I would put that up against damn near anything comic book. Those 28 issues minus the Year of the Villain stuff, but it's just that was minor according to the rest of the series.
We got to vote for Cosmic Odyssey, which again, thing is that are there? I mentioned Strange Apparitions. There is the first Ra's al Ghul story arc. What are any great pre-crisis DC stories that you can think of? I mean, legitimately.
Well, right away, Yul Carter's with the Great Darkness Saga.
Yeah. That's in Joe Crawler would agree with that.
The Judas Contract, as we had already mentioned. So we do have those. The great runs. You see, my mind pops to some of the JLA stuff.
But again, in fairness,
they're good.
Both of those were done by Marvel expats.
Okay. Well, we already know that DC was having a hard time because for the longest time, Weisinger, I believe it was, kept saying Marvel is a passing fad. Don't worry about it. And they, even though the younger writers, the new guy, Neil Adams, trying to tell him, no, we need to do stories like this. That's why Marvel's kicking our ass. And he was like, nah, poppycock. And that kind of held DC back until what was it? They came up with Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams came up with their drug issue idea. And once again, it's like, yeah, we can't do it because blah, 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 yada, yada. Stan Lee writes it for Spider-Man. And all of a sudden DC's like, well, shit, we had that idea. We could have been that person. We could have been those guys. And that's when they threw in with the Green Lantern, Green Arrow.
Yeah, the more things change, the more they say the same. The establishment of any given orthodoxy will never be hip or with it because of crap like that.
Yeah, again, like I said, Titans, Legion in the 80s, Strange Apparitions, 77. Another story that took place in 1977 that I would put up there with anything. First 8 issues of Black Lightning.
Okay.
Pains me to give that asshat credit, but he could write. That's a hell of a story.
Hey, look, you know what? We heard stories about John Byrne. If you went to a convention, maybe you saw it. Tony S. Daniels has the unfortunate
Isabella.
As I said, Daniels.
There is a Tony Daniels. We don't want to hang him.
Right. Tony Isabella. He's on Twitter enough that we got how much of a douche he is. But you're right. He wrote some great books. So he's got.
It's a good thing that Twitter didn't exist back in the 60s.
Sorry. You would still have the Flash of Two Worlds as far as great stories. You would still have the first appearance of the Crime Syndicate, where the Justice League and the Justice Society meet
But if
up.
you read those stories, they're basically, they go off in pairs of 2 and 3. They're like Batman episodes. They get put in the cage, to tune into next issue, same jail, and then they get out of it and they win. It's they're cool ideas, but the stories themselves, I mean, I would argue if you read Flash of Two Worlds, it's kind of silly, but it's set up, for what came later. But it's, again, because
send your hate mail, care of Eric Breen.
Well, no,
no, he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
Superheroes. That's the thing about DC in those days. They aimed the superheroes at little Jimmy, and they aimed the rest of their universe at little Jimmy's older brother, maybe the one that took him to the comic book shop. Your older brother might pick up Strange Adventures or Our Army at War. If it was your sister, one of the romance titles they just bought, et cetera, et cetera. But the superhero books themselves were aimed at 6-year-olds, 6 to 10.
You hear that, Sorensen? Everything was aimed at you.
And I love reading them today, but that's, I mean, hell, is it? It's probably the most five most used words in DC Comics pre-crisis. If he, she, in parentheses, not pronouns, only knew that, and it was followed by, I am secretly Supergirl, or yes, because
mild-mannered Clark Kent. If only
who is
they
secretly
knew
Superman?
Yeah.
Just in case little Jimmy forgot from last month.
Yeah. So the Great Darkness Saga is being hailed as the best DC pre-crisis. But the thing is post-crisis and before the New 52, you did have a lot of great DC comics. I mean, stuff that you can look to and go, this would have to be at least in the conversation of, well, is it one of the greatest comic books of all time? And like I said, a lot of the recreation of, here you go, come on. The fuck you get scared of? Come here.
But while we're here, for as much as DC was on a leash for so long, they did have Vertigo, and quite a lot that was in Vertigo was worthy of the possible top 20 inclusion. Original Hellblazer, original Sandman, until the last 20 issues.
Everything was good by then at DC.
Oh, go on. Sorry, what'd you say, Eric?
No, I'm sorry. I was saying, but by that time, Dalton, everything was going well at DC because that was post-crisis when the reins were 100%, taken off, and they were allowed to thrive as creators, which basically the first half of the 80s pre-crisis they did, because the Batman Detective, I would argue, is better the last 5 years before the crisis than almost first year one notwithstanding, then the first 5 years after that. And there were a lot of good stuff because you had Titans, Legion, Superman did a run or Action Comics had Wolfman and Gil Kane doing a decent length run where they split him in two, which they did in a lot less weird way than Superman Red, Superman Blue, which was a callback to the Silver Age, but I digress.
Mm-hmm.
But after the crisis, it's hard to find a bad book. And you can say, Vertigo, I said it was an embarrassment of riches in those days at DC.
And Marvel
they squandered every single one of them, unfortunately. And
Marvel was whipping their ass.
Yes,
even though
were.
DC was putting out quality after quality after quality, Marvel was whipping their ass.
Well, at least they could look at Marvel and see someone had been around for a while. How do you think they felt at DC when they would look at the top 100 and seeing Image beating them into the ground? Which they did for about a year.
In orders, of course. I always put that out there, in orders, not in sales, because they were so freaking late. They didn't get the sales numbers
I'll be right back.
They didn't get the sales numbers that they thought they would. What is that bird's problem? I didn't spike with Jack Daniels. I moved my hand and that scared him, so he flew back off. I don't actually give him the soda. But one thing that he does do is I'll put some soda on the rim here and then he'll chew it off. He gets the sugar off the edge right there. So that's what happens, and he likes that. I've created kind of an addict bird to all that. So he is weird as far as that's all concerned.
So does that make you a literal sugar daddy to that bird?
I guess so. Yes, that is what happens. Let's see, the one where Mongol has Superman captured using that plant. Yeah, that was the one that was brought up. What do you get a man who has everything? I still have to read Strange Operations every time I had time and money on my schedule to buy it. It was out of print. Yeah, it is really good story. It's one of my favorite of the Batman. There you go. Okay, you want? Here you go. There you are. Okay. See, watch. He'll chew on the edge. There you go. There. See, that's what I normally do. I'll put and I'll rub the sugar on it, and that's where he gets it from. So, and then he'll tear off. I am talking about my pet. I love this little bird. I really do. Not even mine. He belongs to Elizabeth and all that, or at least that's what they tell me. But there you go. We need a drunk bird stream. I would be killed. Gail doesn't like me getting drunk. If I wreck this bird, he is not allowed to get hurt or die on my watch. This is something, yeah, he could, if it happens when Gail's here, hey, I'll be sad, but I won't be divorced. But there you go.
Or in a ditch somewhere after your head has been removed.
Yeah. But there you go. We need a drunk bird stream. Justice League of America 166 and 168. What is that story? I know we read the Freedom Fighters 10. What was that? 108, 109. That was a lot of fun.
I think it ties up some loose ends from Secret Society of Supervillains.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm guessing. No, you might still be here. I'm guessing he's at his shop right now. So I was going to ask him to come on, but
who?
Yule. He's got a shop out in California, so I'm guessing he was chatting from the store.
Oh well, yeah. If
he's got a show tonight at 8 his time.
Yeah, more than welcome to. But the thing is, the whole conversation, of course, is to say that a lot of people put these two books, Dark Knight and Watchmen, on a pedestal. I think they deserve being on a pedestal, but since then, and even before, there were contenders. There were things that were out there that were better. I mentioned Bone, but there's also from Jeff Smith, there's the Captain Marvel and the Monster Men, which is just thoroughly entertaining. And granted, it is subjective. A lot of people have read Watchmen. A lot of people have read Dark Knight, but yeah, it's all suggestive. You like it, you don't. You think it's the best, you don't bite me in the armpit.
I think most, though, of the reputation of those two books comes from they sort of encapsulate for a lot of people what that era of comics was like, where you could get any given Vertigo book be roughly that quality and so on.
But if I'm telling you, if I'm telling you go read this book and you'll know what the 80s was all about, I'm sending it to the X-Men. That is really, that was the top. That was the book. You're reading Uncanny X-Men.
This brings up a question that, because you just mentioned, I said Watchmen, Dark Knight, X-Men, pick a title. There was once a time where you couldn't wait for New Comic Book Day because there was stuff that you absolutely had to read. Can anybody say that about anything now?
No.
Now I realize there's so many more entertainment options and blah, blah, blah. But are there, even the good comics, are there, is it, because I was thinking about that, I go, because it was, I pretty much bailed on in continuity DC again because I just one
they
too
keep ruining
many,
it.
One too many Fire and Ices, and then you go over to Marvel, one too many White Widows. But even the indie stuff, and there's a lot of them I really like, but to me, there aren't there are no Sables, there are no Nexuses, there's no, they come out, I pick them up, but I don't think if you're not of a certain age, you don't realize just how amazing it was to go into a comic book shop and have to wait to get into the new release section, because it was like trying to get on a New York City subway at rush hour. And those days they're not coming back. I mean, they couldn't, even if they, but still, it was amazing how crazy new comic book day was when a new issue of Dark Knight Returns or Watchmen or X-Men, even when there was twice a month. I mean,
or Sandman or Preacher or Hellblazer, or and the list goes on.
Indeed.
Our childhood was better than yours as far as comics. That's just the way it is.
I am aware. All our movies suck now. All our TV sucks now. All our comics suck now. Is there anything else you would like to rub in my face?
I
I've
wouldn't
already
go
literally
TV.
done.
Look, we had some great TV. That's fine, but I wouldn't go TV versus 1980s. Sure, we had Family Ties. We had The Cosby Show. We had some good comedies, some decent dramas. But since The Sopranos, I really do think TV has kind of gotten a lot.
Well, that's not exactly comparing like for like, though. But if you compare, for example, sitcoms to sitcoms, I think you guys made out better.
The thing is even you don't have as many sitcoms, but even then you still had storylines that just weren't. Our episodic TV was very episodic. You would get the
it was very CBS like.
Yeah, you would get the special 2-parter, but there was no through line. There was a Family Ties episode, excuse me. It was called My Name is Alex P. Keaton. And it was all about him being in therapy because his friend died. And Michael J. Fox knocks it out of the freaking park. It was a really good acting, but we never met the friend before. He was created for this episode to be the dead guy. You saw him in a couple of flashbacks, but the audience had no emotional connection to him. It was an episode. It was its own thing. If this episode was done today, I have no doubt that they would have introduced us at the beginning of whatever season, and at the end, or the episode before the end, would have been his death, and then we would have gotten My Name is Alex B. Keaton, which would be him dealing with it, and everybody would be more connected because we know the friendship. That's the way 80s TV was. Hill Street Blues, the dramas actually tied stuff together and actually had through lines, but most of TV was just that. It was episodic TV. Let's see. The end of the Satellite League era with the Martian Wars is Jim Sorensen. Undead Quinn has said Vertigo Shade the Changing Man is a hidden classic. So is Brother Power of the Geek, by the way. Let's see. Matt Kent is the closest to real life indie comics. Says let's see. Modern is forgettable. And they have no shows like Dead Like Me. That was early 2000s. But yeah,
oh god, Dead Like Me was amazing. Oh my god. I love Dead Like Me so much.
When TV decided, you know what, we could be like the movies. Let's be like the movies. And they started.
Dead Like Me was my childhood. It was always what was on right after Saturday morning cartoons, and I would watch it, and that show was so freaking amazing.
Oh, there you go. That's
yeah. As a quick aside, up to that point, the only show I can think of that you couldn't just come in during any season and watch it, and you really couldn't even do it with this. The original Hawaii Five-0, there was one crime lord they couldn't catch, a guy named Wofat.
Mm-hmm.
In the remake, he was young and buff. Of course he was. But in the remake, McGarrett flew from one plane to another. But I digress. But when they killed off, when one of the main characters was leaving the show, they had Wofat kill him, cruise up to the police station, and just throw his body out to roll up to the steps. And I think they finally got him in the last episode, but you didn't have that stuff in those days.
Yeah.
Now, the last 20, 25 years have been a golden age for television drama. None of it on the network, none of it on the commercial networks, but
Lost. That was it. That's their one.
But didn't he,
And
but don't most
Lost
people
wasn't all
complain
that
about-
great in retrospect, actually,
Yeah,
either.
Yeah, you got that right.
What were you saying, Eric?
Dalton said it for me. So don't a lot of people complain about how that ended up?
They do the same with The Sopranos. It's also
And then some of the writers for Lost made Once Upon a Time, which started out with amazing potential and ended horribly.
They went to the well one too many times.
Wasn't people's problems with Lost more than just one show? I mean, it
was the whole ending. The last season, people didn't like.
Right. It was that the people that have a problem with Sopranos didn't get what they wanted. They wanted Tony to go out in a blaze of glory. When we realized that really wasn't what it was about. So that's one episode versus an entire season. But again, I'll accept Lost. I mean, that in the 90s, you had Homicide, which I think aimed a lot higher than its competition. And it got smoked by its competition because people just weren't ready for it. I mean, those aren't made for mass appeal. Lost kind of broke that mold.
I'll say this, and this is a nickel's worth of free advice that I truly, truly believe you guys should take. And that is that on Amazon Prime, the Prime Video is Remington Steele. That makes that worth getting, the Amazon Prime. And also pick up Hulu so you can watch the first 3 seasons of Moonlighting, which took a lot to get to because they've got a lot of licensed music. So do yourself a favor, go watch those. They are freaking awesome. Absolutely. There's not even that, hey, a hashtag change my mind. You can't. Moonlighting, the first 3 seasons are awesome. Stop at the 3rd season. Do not go any further. But those first three seasons I'll put up against any television out there.
I didn't realize until I was one of the rabbit holes that I've gone down the last couple of years or a couple of days. Our YouTube puts up like the best commercials of 1969.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it'll put other things like that. It was TV themes of the 70s and 80s. And I watched both of them last night. And Remington Steele was one of them. And I forgot he didn't even get top billing. She did.
She did, yeah.
Yeah.
He was a nobody.
Oh, I know. And Stephanie Zemblis Jr. was Ephraim's daughter. So, and her grandfather was a big time actor in the 30s and 40s.
Yeah. She was a legacy name at the very least, but he was nobody. He was that strange guy from Ireland.
It was just like, Bruce Willis obviously was a backseat to Sybil Shepherd, who was a bigger star at the time. But
yep, that lasted a week.
Yeah.
That show made Bruce Willis, and he was funny as fuck in that show.
But I will say, Sybil Shepherd had a comedy in the 90s after that. It was really good.
Yeah.
Tom Wopat was on it, and Alicia Witt, who's, if you remember her.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a pretty good show. But I never see pop up anywhere.
Let's see. We've got. I just got my books from the mail from E, logging them onto League of Comic Geeks. The only part of Lost I've seen is a few minutes of one episode when I was like 8.
Yeah, I never liked Lost, even when it was still on when I was a little kid. I never liked it.
Joel Carter is talking about how Taming the Shrew is the best episode ever, and that's a problem. That show did so well that they started writing Maddie more and more like a bitch, and in season 5, it's like just get her off the screen. It was horrible the way they wrote her. Chances are with Sybil Shepherd and RDJ, a great wrong. Oh, that is a good movie. I do like that one, and also the one with the Robert Downey Jr. movie where the ghosts inhabit his body. I forget what that's like, but you find out that Robert Downey Jr. can do opera. One of the ghosts he was a singer and always wanted to do an opera, so he lets him inhabit his body, and you get Robert Downey Jr. belting out an aria. It's pretty damn good too. But yeah, he did some pretty good movies before he went on his drug binge. I mean, for fuck's sake, he was nominated for an Oscar before when he did Chaplin, which is a great movie. I would recommend to anybody. Yeah. All righty. Been at it for about $1.50 and we're off topic. So might as well. So, okay, we'll go on. I'm good.
Well, I was eating before I jumped on, and I would like to finish eating. So maybe
I'll finish your dinner. There you go. But yeah, I was gonna do this. But yeah, what do you have to talk about there, Eric?
I didn't expect it to get past that. So
I'm here for you, man. You said so. Let's go, man. What else is there? We were going to talk about the best and worst we did, but what else is there in comic bookdom that we have to talk about? And what are the arguments? What are the debates? I'm sure somebody's pissed at somebody, right? Didn't somebody say put out a tweet that says you guys are just jealous because Cyberfrog is a 100% original idea? You can go with that.
Yeah.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles much, guys?
I'll take a pass on that. But I did see that what was it? There was an animated trailer for the book that Dixon and Bennett are doing for Eric July.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I guess it looked okay, but I mean, I ordinarily I would jump at that creative team, but yeah, again, I don't want to spend that kind of money on it, but I hope it does well. I can't remember the title though.
Well, I'm always rooting for Chuck Dixon. I don't like what happened to him in the with everything. I really don't. I mean, this is a guy who is one of the greats of in comics, one of the great comic book writers. I think he's earned his position, and unfortunately, because of the bigotry of modern day writers and artists and editors, we're getting the good people are getting tossed out as if they didn't matter.
Well, you have to. If you're the people that have control of the industry now, you can't let these people back in, because then it becomes how obviously superior they are to you.
Right. Well, that's morality, of course. I mean, we all know that. Anybody who's heard Vita Ayala speak knows that she is miles above Chuck Dixon morally.
Yeah.
That is not in question. That's not what I was talking about. I was talking about Chuck Dixon's ability to write comics.
Please note
through and through. Vita Ayala is, in fact, an angel sent from God to Earth for us.
Please note the extremely dry sarcasm inherent in these lines. Do not take them seriously.
You did hear me call an hour and a half $1.50. Sorry.
That's also true. But how did we get to a point to where the industry decided that it was better to pay poor creators peanuts, knowing that the sales are going to diminish? So it's kind of, everybody's complicit. But if you want to fix this, you could start bringing successful, good creators back, pay them accordingly, and watch your sales go up. I think. I'm not even sure if that can happen now, because it's been so long now.
No, it would, but it won't, because not only did they sell themselves on how cheap they were, a lot of these modern day writers got in with moral shaming, i.e., how dare you not represent this demographic and that demographic and the other demographic, and how dare you be patriarchal and blah 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 blah. Because of that moral element, there is no way they can go back now, because according to the Twitterati, that will instantly make them immoral if they do that. If they go back to flying right, they will be called immoral 6 ways from Sunday, and someone will get their funding cut.
Oh my gosh. So I was looking at Twitter. What can we talk about? And, I've tried. I've failed in some situations, but I've tried to keep what's going on off of this channel, because I know there are some people who lose their freaking minds. I got to show it. I got to show this. What
your funeral.
What people are freaking getting all up in arms. I saw Punisher trending, right? And
Oh,
first thing
no.
I see is that lousy freaking new blonde hair Punisher guy that look, and it's like, come on. It's like freaking gay Lobo from the New 52. It's not Lobo. Blonde Punisher is not Punisher. But do you know what they're getting up in arms at? This.
Oh,
This
no.
is an Israeli soldier. So naturally, you get the freaking Nazi terrorists saying soldiers in the West Bank are wearing Punisher symbols and on their helmets. And then you get douche nozzles like, boys, it the people who Punisher would kill? Is it? No, you dumbass. No. I am sorry. But who would the Punisher be against? Who would he be for? You're not going to convince me he's going to be for a whole bunch of terrorists who sneak into a freaking country in the night and burn families. And put a freaking, I saw the video, put a fucking baby into a fucking oven. No, I'm sorry. I've got one speed and one level on this particular subject. One. There is no fucking changing my mind. You put a fucking baby in a fucking oven, you deserve to suck the pipe. That's all I'm saying. Kaboom.
Keep in mind, these are the people who saw Jordan Peterson and went, so you're Red Skull now.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm sorry. You know what really pisses me off? We're called Nazis for voting for Trump. We're called Nazis for drinking milk. We're called Nazis for freaking making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich because you know who eats jelly and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches? Black people because they're poor. I shit you not.
Okay, sign, etc.
That is something that is said, right? That is something that was said. But now you have fucking Americans chasing Jewish people into a fucking building trying to hurt them. You just today, there was a guy who was beaten and knocked to the ground and killed because he was Jewish. And they're not Nazis. They're being protected. So I'm sorry. Okay. I'm off of it. Just saying. I've got one fucking speed on this one.
I know.
It's viewers for it, yeah. But you know what? I don't care on this particular subject because they are literally acting like Nazis, like literal Nazis. And we were called Nazis for voting the way they don't like. Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. I'm sorry. Okay. But anyway, I was going to see, what are they talking about? The Punisher. There you go. Anybody else?
This is well, as long as we're here, I might as well throw my 2 pence into the ring here.
I'm not
the reason that social justice warriors are so schizophrenic on the Semitic issue is because they have a split in their ideology. They want to treat Jews like victims because of Holocaust, but they also want to treat Jews as extensions of the West and extensions of capitalism because the U.S. bankrolls a lot of Israel. And so they viscerally hate the state of Israel, but they still keep the victim points of the Jews were persecuted under Nazi Germany in K. That's why they're so schizophrenic, because they in their mind separate Judaism or the Jewish people from the state of Israel. That's why they're so schizophrenic about it.
Yeah, it's the tribalism war are not needed.
Yeah,
I just don't get it. Hey, Dominic,
what these people? Yeah, what these people I fail to realize is much like with the Native Americans, like these guys are not victims. You know, like, if you really look into the history, because you're like they've done their fair share of crap as much as other people have done like centuries ago.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think the Punisher logo has been misunderstood even by it was Dugan, right? Conway.
No, it was Jerry Duggan.
Conway.
Who?
Conway created him, but
okay. Right, yeah, he's the first one that...
But didn't develop him, yeah.
Right, but you didn't develop him. When he was created, New York had a horrible crime wave. He was an answer to that. Now, granted, his first appearance, he was hired by the Jackal to kill Spider-Man.
Because he'd been duped into thinking Spider-Man was a supervillain.
Right.
Exactly.
Not that JJ would have helped on that front.
Giving Frank Castle a sense of morality. Now, later, Frank Castle ends up kind of going batty, and he starts going, "Oh, there's a litterer." Brr, you know, I believe that was in a Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man issue. the point of the Punisher was he was the answer to a huge crime wave. He was of course, Charlie Bronson in Death Wish, just writ large. Now is the time for a Punisher kind of guy. We have out of control crime in all sorts of democratic states right now. Yeah, I'm saying it.
But an industry that, if not outright supports it, agrees with the ideology of the people committing the crime.
Condones it, if not outright lionizing it.
And not to mention, like, there's also it's also not to mention is during the period where like the cops, like, their hands are tied and can't really do what they want to do, and that is like to protect and serve and like catch the bad guys.
And so the symbol, which represents the Punisher represents an extreme answer to an extreme situation. How are you going to stop these new what are the flash mobs that just rush into a store, steal everything, and rush out? As Dominic was saying, the cops are told, stand down, don't do anything. It's just stuff. Forget about the fact that just stuff represents time. If it's a Walmart, they're billionaires, blah, 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 yada, yada. But still, there are people who work there that needs that store to be open. It's going to be closed after it's robbed. This is people's livelihood. It is people's time. It's people's life that is being stolen. It's just in the form of goods. And we have that extreme. The Punisher should always be an extreme answer to an extreme situation. And a lot of people have forgotten. On October 7th, 1,500 people were killed in the most brutal of fashions. So if an Israeli wants to put that symbol on his head, it's exactly fitting. Punisher is not a way for everybody to act. And nobody actually believes that that's the way to act. If you ever see the people who actually do, it's usually, I know here we had there was a kind of an A team of cops. We called them the Duke Boys. And they were a special unit that would go into the gang areas and get shit done when it was necessary. And some of them actually had Punisher tattoos and all that kind of stuff because they were the extreme answer to an extreme situation. That's how it should be seen. Marvel, because of course their modern ethics, their modern beliefs and such, or I should say their far left progressive beliefs. It's not modern. Not everybody's thinking like them. They look and they go, oh, it's all brutality. The crime is brutal. You have to have, you cannot treat certain people with kid gloves. They'll just come back harder. So you need that particular response. And that's what the Punisher was. And that's what I think they forget. What are you going to do with this? What are they going to do with this blonde hair Punisher? Is he going to be a friendlier, nicer Punisher? Why is he called the Punisher then? Oh my gosh, are you okay?
Good question.
And
there's also another matter.
I don't think they have any idea what they're going to do either, to be honest with you.
Well, what did you say there, Dominic?
Well, I was also going to bring up the fact that for a good long while, Jerry Conway may have created the Punisher, but it's through writers such as Chuck Dixon, Garth Ennis, and countless others. Those who really fleshed Frank Castle out, as well as his supporting characters. Also, for years, he has a wide appeal for everybody, not just one particular group of people or a way of thinking.
Yeah, there you go. And by the way, Eric, you're right. Just do a little digging. You can find something to talk about. But
I'm having a hard time hearing Dom, so I'm going to dip out and come back in.
All right, have a good dinner. That's something.
He's coming back.
I'm not leaving yet.
It's not you, Dalton.
I'm just
I'm having trouble too.
What was he saying?
He's saying he's having difficulty hearing Dominic, so he's going to jump off and
it wasn't him. Somebody even mentioned in the chat, it sounds like you're underneath the earth. It sounds like you're like a 1940s radio station.
It was good communication, connection issues.
Yeah, I've seen you bounce and come back a couple of times, and you are always welcome. And hello to Cartoons and Comics. Ossipee, it's always the same thing whenever Punisher is trending. The wrong people like the Punisher. We need the softer male feminists to like the Punisher.
Again, everybody has likes the Punisher for years, not just one particular group.
Right.
But even if you disagree with his methods, you at least empathetically understand on why he's doing it. And he even tells people he encounters to not do what he does in universe.
If you change a character to be just like everybody else, why bother to have the character?
So
because the character can act as a weapon for them. That's why.
This reminds me of the
rhetorical
what if
question,
Punisher.
but
This reminds they did a what if Punisher a while back. I forget what it was, but this is the new cover here that they're popping up. Like I said, the emo Lobo from New 52. Tell me that this doesn't bring up the same vibes. Are you getting Punisher vibes? Did they make a clown image off of the Punisher? Like the original Punisher symbol was a death mask. That looks like a clown mask.
Yeah, I don't get any Punisher vibes from this cover.
Yeah, who's doing this?
Oh, let me pop that up again. See if we can't see the names on the book.
I mean, there is
no. Marvel Comics got rid of the symbol. Blah, 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 blah. New Punisher title is up. Symbol is not returning. Instead, they got a retarded design to replace it. That guy's not a. It doesn't say. So
now, is this out tomorrow?
I don't know. I haven't seen a previews. If it is, we're reading it.
I mean, there's no way this doesn't sell abysmally, because I said they absolutely they've been working for 10 years to clear the fan base out of comics, and then they take the character we like and assassinate him and replace him. Who is this for?
Them, so they can use the IP as a weapon.
I'm sorry.
The quote-unquote modern audience.
You know, obese lesbians aren't going to be able to see themselves in the Punisher, so they're not going to touch it. So who's that?
That's a good question. What's his name? CB Cebulski?
Who also an obese lesbian?
What's his name? Let's Adam, I guess.
Not unless he came out as trans recently.
Okay, let's see. Marvel Comics Punisher. Let's see what we get when we look up. The Twitters, does the new guy comes up, CBR. The next Punisher has no problem facing off against Marvel Comics' worst villains on their own turf. And a preview for the upcoming series first issue. I guess that's what they got. Here's Marvel Entertainment. That ain't Frank Cat. Oh my gosh. I'm going to read this off. But first, let's see. What the fuck is that? What the hell? Okay, no, I want. Why did that happen? Where's my? There it is. I'm going to post this at CB Cebulski. Let's see. At CB. Should be there. He is. Who is this for? Okay. Really? All right. Just asking. See if he'll answer. But I do think that it is kind of interesting. I'm going to share this here. When I looked right away, the first thing out the gate, you got that. There's my reply. That ain't Frank Castle, so it's not the Punisher. Calling it dude's run is going to end with Frank Castle returning from hell and killing him. They inverted his costume and made him blonde to fit the next Hollywood actor, says Funky Mustache. Punisher in name only. This isn't Punisher. It isn't Frank Castle. Finally, I've been waiting. Who? Nobody's been waiting. Let's see. Nice hype.
If somebody legitimately said, finally, I've been waiting, I bet they got pronouns in the bio.
Finally, I've been waiting. Where is he? Kami-sama. Comics, manga, anime is all it said. That's a false. I mean, there's nothing there. You can tell by the way some profiles look that they are sock buckets. Sock buckets.
Sock bucket.
Sock puppet is the word.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Buckets came out. Yeah, exactly. This is not going over well. The Punisher is not the Punisher. Do you know what's making me want to do? I want to go watch the TV show and read the fucking books. I've been hunting Punisher books as much as I can.
Now,
I'm thinking you guys might like him for the auction. I found out that ain't true, but yeah.
If this guy, if it's David Pepose, he's supposedly not bad. But again, I'm sure he's probably got his hands tied behind his back because it's. Oh boy.
Okay, predictions for the Punisher. We'll go around. I'll make mine, and then we'll go to Eric, to Dalton, and then Dominic. My first prediction is going to be that this Punisher will go after cops for being too brutal. Eric?
He'll go after people protesting against Antifa.
All righty. Dalton?
Yeah, he'll be marching with Antifa. He will be the Antifa superhero, basically, is my submission.
Dominic?
He'll go after cops, and then after people who are critical of organizations like Antifa and BLM.
I think that the Punisher is going to realize that some crimes don't warrant punishment.
Oh, kind of like when Judge Dredd started letting illegals in.
That's right. That's right. Their illegal immigration is okay to Judge Dredd nowadays.
Here's the problem with that theory. There is a contingent within the left, the Antifa types, the BLMs, the by any means necessary types, that love political violence. So my thinking is he will use violence. He'll just use it on the behalf of the SJWs instead of against them. Just like with just like in the MCU, what with Sam Wilson siding with the totally not supposed to be Antifa flag smashers there.
Let's see. We got going back to what we were talking about as far as the Israeli soldiers, the Stalin-Lenin way of the fact of we have Jewish culture. We need to let it material and legacy for your descendants. That's why the far left hates us. The far left is full of Jews, and you know what? They need their talking to, just as any people who would say is okay for Hamas. But a lot of the Jewish people who were far left is finding out when they say I stand for Israel, the far left dumped them quick. They only have one Frank Castle, not the Punisher. I agree with Undead. Let's see. Give it a red nose and I see it. This looks like Punisher the Soy Boy Pretenders as cartoons. Who is David Pepose, the writer? Okay. Let's see. Going against Marvel villains on their own terms. Are they bringing back Scourge? That's right. That character did that.
Yeah, the Scourge.
Wait until they have a story with the Punisher shooting a science denier or a climate, somebody who's going to affect the climate. Now, when are we going to have an appointment on White Shadow? I have actually, by the way, done yesterday, as a matter of fact. Look for it in the, if you go to the home channel, go to videos, it should be the second one. This would be the first one on the end, and then the second one. We did a reading of White Widow last night and blew that book up.
You know, I just thought of another thing that this Punisher's probably going to do, and I can't believe it took me this long to think of it. We are going to be this Punisher's villains, exaggerated versions of people like
that. That is true, yeah.
And the alt-right, quote unquote.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Dom.
Yeah, pretty much. He's going to go after anybody, regardless where you lean politically, be it like conservative, moderate, apolitical, or even like lean classic liberal, or just straight up classic liberal.
They're gonna dust off the Jordan Peterson is Red Skull thing again, probably, or something equivalent to it.
Well, one of the things I've said many times is to the far left, there is no right wing. If you've noticed, it's all extreme right. It's the extreme right. It's the alt right. There's
Anyone
nobody
to the
who's
right of
just-
me is immoral, basically, is the
Yeah,
argument.
there's no just.
Or if you're left or lean left, i.e. like center left or classic liberal, you'll call a sellout at best.
Or
Cartoons
they'll just call you softcore fascists, like I've been called 5, 6, 7 different times.
Right.
They're going to be the villains. God bless them. They're going to take the bullet, but that's what Ethan wanted. When he took the title. So,
Well, but I would imagine by Comicsgate, cartoons and comics is kind of throwing us in that same category.
yeah, I am.
They don't know. The writers don't know. The writers don't know the difference any more than Ethan and company do.
There are people in Comicsgate right now, and I've talked to a few who had no idea. They have no idea about Doug. They have no idea even about Richard, much less me or Phil. You know, we're non persona non grata as far as that's concerned. So we might be tied in because we share some same ideas, but yeah, we're not seen that way anymore. The Punisher on PS2 and Xbox is a damn good video game, sir. I absolutely agree.
I agree. I know. You can tell that. You can tell Thomas Jane is having fun following playing as Frank Castle, the Punisher.
Yeah. Let's see. Did you Punisher versus people that affect climate? He's going to kill Storm. Profits are the villains for the most new comic. Says profits, meaning like money profits are the new.
They don't
villains.
They don't like making.
You're a capitalist. You must die. Yeah, Capel.
Liberals get the money too. Oy.
I'm gonna get you. Bang, bang.
I'm sorry, but capitalism is not what you think it means.
Right. I'm definitely. I'm purposefully trying to do the teenager from The Simpsons as the Punisher now. And so there you go. I probably am the only one that remembers that character. Sorry, guys. I think they're going to do a Phantom Menace style critical drinker. They really hate him. Yeah. Well, he's got a big channel and it's easy to punch up. I've looked at them. I sometimes like, well, I need an idea. I need something to talk about. What's the Phantom Menace bringing up? And it's like, fuck it. They're boring. I get so bored.
I mean, Gary and Doomcock got immortalized on She-Hulk. You can't take that away from them.
God bless them for it. Yeah, they should have freaking called him that too. Dumbcock, though, I can't believe he's got a following. That blows my fucking mind sometimes. But yeah, they're gonna make anybody with a YouTube channel who has a right wing or a conservative point of view a villain. I'm sure.
Or what they would define as those things. Even it's not even going to be people with actual. Right.
What we're ultimately seeing is, I think nobody has faith in Marvel's Punisher. It's just not happening. It amazes me too, because I mean, granted, okay, he's got his day in the sun, and he wasn't as not as popular now as he used to be, but still, nobody has faith. Nobody's looking to this thinking, hey, it's going to be awesome.
No.
Again, it's who is it for? You can make a case that White Widow is aimed squarely at the demographic they've been chasing for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Punisher is not.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Nobody wants this version.
I get what you're saying, because you can lump them in. You got the White Widow for Marvel, you got Fire and Ice for DC. They all seem to be aimed at that same group of people that don't buy comics, but they keep making them for them. You're right. The Punisher should be for guys first. He's a superhero for guys, because he's very much, there's a problem, I'm getting it done. Good.
He's a gun-toting ex-soldier. What more guy thing could there be in this format?
Yeah, but the guys...
Oh, go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Eric.
No, so the guys that they want reading their comics look like, what was it? The Prodigy version from the America comic by National Treasure Gabby Rivera.
I was going to say Fire and Ice, but yeah, that too. The guy, by the way, I'm mentioning that the guys would look like Fire and Ice. They're going for the soy boy, male feminist type to read this version of Punisher. Those guys aren't interested in a guy named the Punisher. They got to realize is the legend that Michael Jordan said. The Republicans buy tennis shoes also.
And I'll throw this out here. If you truly wanted to target the Punisher at Twinks, make a spin-off character called the Punished and make BDSM references. That will get you the flamboyant Twinks paying attention.
Let's see. I think they're going to do. Okay, we read that one. Drinker got face-to-face interview with Ben Shapiro a few days ago talking about Snow White. It's pretty. Yeah, I saw that. It's pretty good. Or like me, a libertarian, I got some treatment as a proud boy. Huh.
Yep, been there, done that.
Let's see. They're interested in a guy named Punisher if they tell him, "Punish me, Daddy."
Yes.
And guns.
Unironically, yes. If you wanted Twink to read Punisher, you make BDSM jokes.
I did a live stream about a month ago with two gay dudes, 20-something years younger than me. You know what we talked about? Great Batman stories.
There you go.
No Man's Land.
Well, according to the left, all gay people talk about is dick. How to
being super. Thanks for asking.
So we talked about we did talk about Robin a lot, but that's beside the point. But the point I said, so by and large, the gays that participate in this hobby they're not even
are just like everyone else in this hobby.
Yes, they don't want this shit either.
Now, I was at a Books A Million. One of they had this discount rack of comics and all that, and standing there, a couple of gay guys come up and they're like, "Oh my gosh, they got it's Kamala Khan. I'm gonna get this, and Captain Marvel. I'm gonna get this," and they were getting all the books basically that we were trashing. So I straight up asked them. I said, "So yeah, why? What is the appeal to you? Because I got to tell you, not a fan." And oh my gosh, they're so cute, and I like the art, and I like that. I'm like, okay, I met two. I mean, the art's horrible, but go on ahead. You do you.
I disavow because the way characters are drawn today is just not attractive to me as a gay guy. The problem with all of these twink writers and artists and what have you is they draw the characters as though they are twinks.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for someone a little bit more along the lines of a classical superhero physique-wise. So to me, when you take a character who was, masculine 5 seconds ago and you turn them into Big Gay Al from South Park, it just makes them less attractive to me. It's annoying.
That side-by-side Tim Drake meme from the other day, the 90s Tim Drake, and then the picture where Bernard has just snuck up on him from the Tim Drake series where he's got that. It looks like a dancer that's just stepped on in something. So yeah, that's to your. I'm guessing that's to your point, because it's like this is, again, who is this shit for?
Because it's certainly not for gay guys like me. It might be for gay guys who are politically gay, i.e., because they're so effeminate and flamboyant, they feel they have nowhere else to go. But it's certainly not for people like me.
Yeah, it's a weird situation, man. We've been doing this for 6 years now, almost 7. In March, I think it'll be 7.
Almost 7.
And we're going through the same stuff. It really is.
Because it's taken them this long to even remotely catch on. We've been saying all the stuff that the Variety article from from last week said too, for about that same length of time, and they're just now catching on. The establishment is extremely glacial in its movement. By the time they're actually caught up with where we were 6 years ago, there will be a new thing which we will have moved on to because the internet can, to its credit, move faster than the establishment.
I don't think I did a reaction to the article. I should do one. I know it's a little late, but who freaking cares at this point? It's holy shit. I'm gobsmacked. I'm flabbergasted. It is just how in the impossible world are we still here? I mean, I got my theories. Like I said, we were making headway, and then the rug got pulled out from under us, and everybody lost focus. So here you go. This is what's happening. Characters are gone. The blue hairs got a hold of it, and everybody involved with our particular movement was labeled as a racist. I think if ever that kind of thing happened again, keep labels out of it. So we're all individuals doing this, but holy shiitake mushrooms. Did the ambiguously gay duo ever get a comic? I don't think they did. I don't remember one. Yeah.
They haven't made that joke yet.
Paula's saying,
I think because it is too obvious.
Paula's saying not sure if it's counting as counting on when they simply stopped publishing the profitable genres. And Undead Quinn says, no more ugly and flat-chested characters. I was talking the other day, a young lady jumps into the comments. We were taking apart. It was the one before White Widow. And this young lady jumps in. She works at my comic shop. And we were talking about what books do you like, what books do you don't. And I told her, I said, well, I like this and this and this. And I started talking about Marvel. And I said, the weird thing about Marvel is they say they're all about diversity. And here they have Captain Marvel. And Monica Rambeau is an old-time Captain Marvel. They want to do something to bring in diversity. And you guys know what happens. They gave it to Carol Danvers. I said, then they drew her 6 foot tall, broad-shouldered with no boobs. I said they turned her into the Aryan poster boy for the Nazis. They literally, we want our whole line to be more diverse, but our main character, the one we're going to push, we're going to start drawing her to look like the Aryan poster boy for the Nazis. And this little girl's like,
a blonde white woman goes for a sex change.
Yeah. It's like I don't know. I don't trust Marvel as far as I could throw them. And with my bad back, I shouldn't be throwing anybody. Let's see. What's the next one? Saw a couple of sites yesterday. The French comic market had half of the sales of the U.S. market, but France has a fifth of the U.S. population.
Yeah, because bande dessinée is huge over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's similar to manga and manhwa in Japan and South Korea, respectively. The bande dessinée, they cover a whole variety of genres, not just capes.
Yeah.
That being said, if cape shit was being written well, cape shit would easily still be the majority of the market, but it's not being written well, and so here we are.
Let's see. Issue number 1 is trending. Oh. Okay, so issue number 1 is trending, and the first thing that pops up is Vivek Asami, or what's his name? Vivek Ramaswamy.
Ramaswamy,
okay, so that's not
runner-up to the
other
Republican
thing
nomination, probably.
The other thing that's trending is the Marvels.
Well,
everybody's talking about.
So issue 1 is they might be talking about Ohio, where basically issue 1 is whether or not, if it passes, underage kids won't need parents' consent to get abortion. I mean, it basically puts it all back on the table.
Oh, okay.
And it's gonna win. I mean, the left never loses, so it's gonna win. And it looks like Virginia's about to go blue again too. So great. Man, what the fuck?
Yay. Yeah, I'll have to tell Gail we ain't moving over to West Virginia. Anywho, now it's 2 hours in. I'm gonna say thank you very much, guys, for hanging out. Once again, we're far beyond the original topic, but that's okay. I liked what we did talk about. That, and I downed 2 bottles of water and a Yoo-hoo. So, homie, need to go to the restroom. Thank you. All righty. So, anywho, what do we got going on? You with the fossils tomorrow?
Yep.
All righty. Anything you need to push there, Dalton?
If we're still doing the RPG tonight, then yes.
Oh, that's
the
right.
RPG.
Yeah, the RPG.
Oh, that's
is
right. The boys are
1:30.
doing the top 5 right now. Yes, I'm gonna head over there. and watch
Also,
There's things going on, guys.
Yeah, also I do a men's rights and men's issues podcast with Mr. E2099 called The Duality of Man every Wednesday at 5:30. So
Alrighty.
if anyone is interested in that topic,
So,
please find your way over there.
Here's the plan. Go check out Geeky Puppets for the top 5. Go check out the men's rights with Dalton at what time?
5:30 tomorrow, but also
Okay,
the
but
RPG tonight.
At
Yeah.
10:30, make sure you're here for the Marvel role-playing game. And tomorrow I might actually be in competition with Fossils, doing a reading on whatever bad comic hits the list there. You guys, thank you very much for hanging out with us. And as always, don't forget to do the liking and the sharing. Share. And if you don't mind helping out in other ways, there's a link in the description to take you to Ko-Fi. Drop $1 in the tip jar or commission a video. I'm doing those again. And as always, thank you very, very much for watching. Have a good night.
Good night, kid.
Cheers, guys.